They mocked the poor security guard at the gate every single morning. They did not know he owned the building. Amaka was the only one who ever smiled at him. She did not know her kindness was being tested by a billionaire's son. One woman treated a poor man like a human being. Everyone else treated him like nothing. But soon, the whole bank would find out who he really was. And by then, it would be too late for the people who laughed at him. Every morning, Adeyemi Trust Bank opened its gates at exactly 7 o'clock. And every morning, the same poor-looking man stood by that gate in an old security uniform that did not fit him well. His name, as far as anyone at the bank knew, was Kelechi. Just Kelechi. No surname. No story. No family. He had scars on his hands. His shoes were old. His uniform smelled of the sun because he stood outside all day, rain or heat, opening the gate for cars that cost more than his whole life. Nobody greeted him. Nobody looked at him twice. Except one woman. Her name was Amaka. She was a junior teller at the bank. Not rich. Not connected. Just a hardworking young woman who had fought her way into that job with her own 2 hands, after her father lost everything and her stepmother made sure she never forgot it. Every morning, Amaka walked past that gate, and every morning, she said the same words. "Good morning, Kelechi." Nobody else did that. The other staff walked past him like he was a shadow. Some of them even used him as a joke. "Kelechi, Oya, come and carry my bag," one of the senior staff would shout, laughing with his friends. Kelechi would carry it. Quietly. No complaint. "Kelechi, make sure you open the gate fast next time, or I will report you," another woman would say, rolling her eyes. He would nod. Say nothing. But Amaka was different. One rainy morning, when Kelechi's old shoes were soaked and his hands were shaking from the cold, Amaka stopped. She opened her small bag and brought out a wrapped plate of food. Jollof rice, a piece of fish, and a boiled egg. "Please eat something," she said. "You have been standing here since morning." Kelechi looked at her for a long moment. Nobody had ever offered him food at that gate. Not once. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. Amaka smiled. "Because you are a human being. That is enough reason." That single sentence would change everything. Kelechi did not tell her the truth that day. Because the truth was this. He was not a poor security guard. He was Kelechi Adeyemi, son of Chief Obinna Adeyemi, the billionaire owner of the entire bank. And he had come to that gate wearing torn clothes, on purpose, to find something money could never buy. He wanted to find a woman who would love him for who he was, not for what he owned. Word began to spread quietly among the junior staff. "Amaka, why are you always talking to that mad security man?" her colleague Chidinma asked one afternoon, laughing under her breath. "He is not mad," Amaka replied simply. "He is just poor. Poverty is not madness." "Poverty will finish you if you carry it on your shoulders like that," Chidinma said. "People will start to think you are also cheap." Amaka did not argue. She simply continued being kind. But not everyone found it funny. Folake, the daughter of one of the bank's biggest shareholders, worked as an executive assistant on the top floor. She was beautiful, confident, and used to getting whatever she wanted. She had also been quietly introduced to Chief Adeyemi's family as a possible wife for his son, a marriage that would join 2 powerful families together. The only problem was, Kelechi had disappeared from public life for almost a year. Nobody at the bank knew his face. His father had kept him away from cameras and events on purpose, protecting him after a painful betrayal years earlier, when a woman had only pretended to love him because of his money. Folake did not know that the poor security guard she was about to insult was the very man her family wanted her to marry. One afternoon, Folake arrived at the bank in a shining car, dressed in expensive clothes, and Kelechi opened the gate for her as usual. She did not even look at him. "Move faster," she snapped. "Some of us have important lives to attend to." Kelechi said nothing. He simply opened the gate wider. Amaka, standing nearby, quietly shook her head. You should at least say thank you, Amaka said politely. Folake turned sharply. Excuse me? Are you talking to me? I only meant that he is also a human being, Amaka said calmly. Folake laughed, a cold, mocking laugh. A gateman and a small teller giving me advice? This bank has really fallen low. She walked away without looking back. Kelechi's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. That night, alone in the small room he had rented near the bank, a room with one bed, one chair, and a single bulb, Kelechi sat quietly and thought about what he had seen. He had watched people worship money and disrespect humanity. He had watched one woman do the opposite. He picked up his phone, a phone far too expensive for a security guard to own, and stared at a text message from his father. Son, how long will you continue this test? Your mother is worried. Kelechi typed back. Just a little longer, Papa. I think I have found someone real. Amaka's home life was not easy. Her father, once a respected businessman, had lost his company years earlier after a bad partnership. Now he lived quietly, humbled by life, while Amaka's stepmother constantly reminded her that she was just managing in that house. You better hurry up and marry a rich man, her stepmother would say almost every evening. Beauty does not pay school fees forever. Amaka's younger stepsister, Bisola, was the favorite. Bisola wore designer clothes bought by suitors who hoped to marry into wealth one day. Amaka wore the same 3 work blouses, washed and ironed carefully every night. But Amaka never complained. She simply worked hard, saved little by little, and treated everyone, rich or poor, with the same respect. One evening, after a long day at the bank, Amaka noticed Kelechi sitting alone near a small roadside food stand, eating slowly, clearly counting his money in his mind before ordering. She walked over and sat beside him, uninvited but welcomed by his gentle nod. You don't talk much, she said. I don't have much to say, he replied. But I listen a lot. She laughed softly. That's rare. Most people talk too much and listen too little. They sat there for almost an hour, talking about small things. Her dreams of one day owning her own small business. His quiet observations about people and kindness. Nothing about money. Nothing about status. For the first time in years, Kelechi felt like a normal man, not a target for gold diggers, not a symbol of wealth, just a man having a simple conversation with a woman who saw him clearly. Why do people treat you so badly at the bank? Amaka asked one evening. Kelechi looked down. Because to them I have nothing to offer. That's not true, Amaka said softly. You have kindness. You have patience. Those things matter more than money. Kelechi almost told her the truth right there. The words were on his tongue. But something held him back. He needed to know, completely, without any doubt, that her heart was real. So the test continued. As weeks passed, the closeness between Amaka and Kelechi became more noticeable, and it began to attract cruelty. Folake, still unaware of Kelechi's real identity, made it her mission to humiliate Amaka publicly. During a staff event at the bank, Folake stood in front of everyone and pointed at Amaka. I hear our humble teller here has fallen in love with the gateman, she announced loudly, laughing. How romantic. Poverty loving poverty. The room erupted in laughter. Even some of Amaka's so-called friends laughed along, afraid to defend her. Amaka's face burned with embarrassment, but she stood tall. There is nothing shameful about respecting people, she said quietly. Respect will not pay your bills, Folake snapped back. You will end up exactly like him. Nothing. At home, things were no better. Amaka's stepmother had heard rumors from a neighbor who worked at the bank. Is it true you are wasting your time on a security guard? She shouted one evening. After everything I have suffered to keep this family together, you want to bring more poverty into this house? I am not marrying anyone yet, Mama, Amaka said calmly. I only treat him with respect. Respect does not fill stomachs, her stepmother shouted. You better face Bisola's suitor's younger brother instead. At least he has money. Amaka lowered her head, absorbing the pain quietly, as she always did. Meanwhile, Kelechi watched all of this from a distance, his heart aching each time Amaka was insulted because of him. Several times, he wanted to reveal the truth simply to protect her. But each time she chose kindness over cruelty, each time she defended him without benefiting from it, his respect for her deepened. You married poverty, Folake mocked one more time, in front of the entire office. I only wanted peace, Amaka replied softly, tears in her eyes but her voice steady. That line, I only wanted peace, would echo through the entire story. Slowly, small cracks began to appear in Kelechi's disguise. One afternoon, an armed security convoy arrived unexpectedly at the bank for an inspection. The head of the convoy, a serious-looking man in a dark suit, walked straight past the manager and the executives, and stopped in front of the gate. He bowed slightly to Kelechi. Oga, good afternoon, the man said respectfully. Your father asked me to check on you. The entire courtyard went silent. Amaka, standing nearby, frowned in confusion. Oga? Your father? Kelechi quickly waved the man away. Not here. Not now. The convoy man nodded and left quickly, but the damage was done. Whispers began. A few days later, a senior bank director walking past the gate suddenly froze when he saw Kelechi's face clearly in the afternoon light. Wait, you look exactly like, the director began, before catching himself and walking away nervously, refusing to finish his sentence. Then came the day Kelechi forgot to remove an expensive wristwatch hidden under his sleeve while helping an elderly customer carry a heavy bag. Folake, walking past, caught a glimpse of it and stopped. Since when do gatemen wear watches like that? She asked suspiciously. It's fake, Kelechi said simply, pulling his sleeve down. Folake did not look convinced, but she said nothing further, for now. Even the guards at the executive floor upstairs, when Kelechi occasionally needed to pass through certain restricted areas late at night, would greet him with unusual respect, quickly opening doors that should have required identification. Amaka noticed all these small strange moments too. She said nothing, but a quiet unease grew inside her. Who are you really, Kelechi? She asked one evening. Kelechi looked at her for a long time, his heart heavy with the desire to finally tell her everything. Someone who is falling in love with you, he said instead. That is the only truth that matters right now. Amaka smiled, but the questions did not disappear from her mind. Adeyemi Trust Bank was hosting its annual anniversary gala at the Grand Palm Hotel, an event attended by the wealthiest families in the city. Every staff member, from executives to junior tellers, was invited to attend, dressed in their best clothes. Amaka wore a simple but elegant dress she had saved for months to buy. She looked beautiful, humble, and completely out of place among the glittering jewelry and expensive gowns around her. Kelechi, still in his old clothes from work, was told by hotel staff that his invitation must be a mistake. Security guards don't get invited to galas, a hotel staff member said, trying to turn him away at the entrance. Folake, standing nearby with her family, laughed loudly. Exactly. Someone remove him before he embarrasses this bank. Amaka stepped forward immediately. He was invited. Let him stay. Amaka, please, Folake said with a mocking smile. Even your loyalty has limits. Some things simply do not belong in certain rooms. The crowd chuckled. Kelechi stood quietly, absorbing the humiliation one final time. Then, the hall doors opened, and Chief Obinna Adeyemi walked in, the owner of the bank himself, tall, composed, powerful. The entire room stood at attention. Chief Adeyemi walked past the executives, past Folake's family, past the shareholders, straight toward the entrance where Kelechi stood. He stopped in front of his son, smiled proudly, and spoke loudly enough for the entire hall to hear. My son. I am glad you finally decided to join us tonight. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Son? Folake whispered, her face turning pale. Kelechi. Adeyemi, a shareholder repeated in shock. Chief Adeyemi placed a hand on Kelechi's shoulder. This is my only son. The next chairman of Adeyemi Trust Bank. He has been working undercover at this bank for the past year, at his own request, to understand people, and to find someone who could love him honestly. Gasps filled the room. Folake's mother grabbed her daughter's arm in panic. You insulted him? You mocked him at the gate? Kelechi's eyes moved slowly across the room, resting briefly on every face that had once laughed at him. You called him a gateman, he said quietly, echoing the humiliation. Now you stand inside a hotel his family owns shares in. Folake's legs nearly gave way beneath her. But Kelechi's eyes searched for only one person. Amaka stood frozen near the back of the hall, her hand covering her mouth, tears already falling. He walked toward her slowly, while the entire room watched in stunned silence. You fed me when I had nothing, he said softly. You defended me when it cost you everything. You never once asked what I could give you. I didn't know, Amaka whispered, her voice shaking. I only saw a man who needed kindness. That is exactly why I chose you, Kelechi said. The days that followed were not simple. Amaka struggled with confusion and hurt. She had fallen in love with a man she believed was poor, only to discover an entire hidden world she had never been prepared for. You lied to me, she said to him one afternoon, her eyes red from crying. For a whole year, you let me believe things that were not true. I never lied about who I was inside, Kelechi said gently. I only hid what I owned. There is a difference. You let me suffer humiliation for you, Amaka continued, her voice breaking. You let your father's shareholders mock me, laugh at me, while you already had the power to stop it. Kelechi lowered his head. You are right to be angry. I am sorry. I only wanted to be sure your love was real, before I gave you a life that could easily attract people who are not real. For several days, Amaka distanced herself, needing time to heal from the shock and process everything. Meanwhile, at the bank, things shifted quickly. Folake's family, humiliated publicly, quietly withdrew their earlier marriage proposal discussions, too embarrassed to remain around the Adeyemi family. Amaka's stepmother, upon hearing the news, suddenly transformed overnight, showering Amaka with sweet words and forced affection. My darling daughter, she said, forcing a smile. I always knew you had good taste. Amaka simply looked at her calmly. You called me a burden for months, Mama. Money does not change what already happened. Even Bisola, who once mocked Amaka's simple clothes, suddenly wanted to be close to her. Amaka, hurting but wise, kept a respectful distance from the sudden family affection, refusing to let money buy back years of neglect. But with Kelechi, her heart slowly began to soften. He did not give up. Every day, he visited humbly, still wearing simple clothes when he came to see her, refusing to overwhelm her with wealth. I am not here as the chairman's son, he told her gently one evening. I am here as Kelechi, the man who once ate jollof rice you gave me at a gate, with nothing to offer you but honesty. Slowly, gently, Amaka's walls began to come down. I forgive you, she finally said one quiet evening. Not because you are rich. But because I remember who you were when you had nothing, and that man was kind. Months later, Adeyemi Trust Bank held another event, this time, a wedding. The same hall that once echoed with mockery now echoed with celebration. Amaka walked down the aisle in a simple, elegant white gown, chosen not for luxury, but because it reminded her of the plate of food she once gave freely at a gate, expecting nothing in return. Chief Adeyemi stood proudly, watching his son finally find real love. Folake did not attend. Some people never fully recover from public humiliation earned through their own cruelty. But Amaka's father, humbled and quiet, watched his daughter with tears in his eyes, proud not because she had married wealth, but because she had remained good, even when the world gave her every reason not to be. As Kelechi took Amaka's hands at the altar, he whispered softly, just for her. You once told me you only wanted peace. I did, Amaka whispered back, smiling through tears. Then let me spend the rest of my life giving you exactly that. She was the bride they threw away. He was the gateman they mocked. But love does not check bank accounts before it decides where to grow.